I recently decided to file for divorce. I've chosen to keep the house and the car. I understand this is a tough time, and though my words may sound sympathetic, they carry a sharper edge than intended. The smile that accompanied these words inflicted deeper pain than I could have imagined. How could he decide to leave at a time when I was battling illness? Didn't we vow to face life's challenges together? The shock of his cold demeanor and harsh words leaves me in tears. I am unable to forgive him. Despite my physical frailty, I am resolved to make him feel the pain he has inflicted upon me. This resolve marks the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one of retribution. My name is Natalie, and at 42 years old, I have devoted my life to being a loving housewife, caring tirelessly for my family. Each day with my husband Bruce used to be filled with joy, reminiscent of the sweet, vibrant candies we once enjoyed together, so delightful that time seemed to vanish. When we first met through a mutual friend, Bruce's outgoing nature and warm smile quickly put me at ease, making it easy to open up to him. Our early days were filled with such happiness that I eagerly looked forward to every moment we could spend together, cherishing each one. It's difficult to grasp now, but our love was once deep and true, filled with promises of a shared future. Living with him felt like a dream. Each day was radiant, and I believed our smiles would last forever. However, as time passed, Bruce began to change, likely strained by his demanding job. His salary wasn't substantial, as he hadn't pursued advanced education or qualifications, which limited his career opportunities. Although I suggested he consider a new job several times, he always hesitated, claiming he was content with his current situation. While I was working full-time and we weren't facing any financial issues, I still had concerns about what might happen if we decided to have a child or if I became ill and couldn't work. To ease these worries, I thought it might help if Bruce found a stable job as well. One day, a friend from my company's HR department mentioned there was an opening in administration. It didn't require special qualifications, just a basic skill set, and it seemed like a perfect chance for Bruce to improve his job situation, which I knew he found challenging. Excited, I suggested the position to him, thinking it could be a great opportunity. However, Bruce's response was unexpectedly cold and defensive. "Why are you making decisions about my job without asking me? I chose my current place myself. Are you saying there's something wrong with it?" His reaction caught me off guard. I had only suggested out of concern for his future and well-being, not to undermine his choices. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you with my proposal," I apologized, trying to explain my intentions. "I just thought the conditions at your current job seemed tough, and maybe this company would be a better fit for you." But he didn't see it that way. "Just because you're my wife doesn't mean you can interfere in my career decisions," he retorted, almost as if he were talking to a stranger, not his partner. As he walked away, his words, "as if you were a stranger," echoed in my mind, striking a deep chord. I am his wife, and we are supposed to be a family, yet his words and demeanor felt like they were directed at someone else. This incident was just one of many that began to create a growing rift between us. This strain extended to his interactions with my family as well. My mother, a genuinely kind soul, often visited our home while I was at work. She would clean and cook, leaving delightful meals in the refrigerator as her way of looking after us. I deeply appreciated her efforts and frequently invited her over for dinner. However, lately, Bruce had become visibly annoyed by her presence. On occasions when he'd come home and find her in the living room, his irritation was palpable, further widening the growing crack between us. Bruce's abrupt comment, "You're here again?" left both my mother and me stunned. It made me question the state of our relationship and our future together. How were we supposed to bridge the growing gap between us? With a gentle smile, my mother responded, "It's all right, Natalie. If my presence makes you uncomfortable, I apologize. I'll leave earlier today." Hearing her say that broke my heart, especially knowing how she always went out of her way to help us despite her busy schedule. "Bruce, please, think about how Mom feels," I implored, tears beginning to well up in my eyes, altering the mood in the room. I remembered all the times she had brightened our home and couldn't fathom why Bruce would address her in such a manner. Bruce tried to explain his feelings, saying, "When I come home after working hard all day, all I want is to relax. It's exhausting to have someone else around all the time in my own house." I tried to see things from Bruce's perspective, but my appreciation for my mother's efforts made it difficult. It seemed to me that Bruce was just being stubborn, and I struggled to find a way to communicate my feelings in a manner he could understand. My mother, seeing the tension, reassured me, "Don't worry about it, Natalie. If everyone's happy, that's all that matters to me." Her comforting smile filled me with an overwhelming sense of guilt. That evening, as I savored the delicious meal she had prepared, my emotions were a mix of appreciation and remorse. I couldn't stop thinking about Bruce and how our relationship might be mended. Meanwhile, a new challenge emerged. One day at work, I suddenly felt dizzy and fainted. Thankfully, my colleagues acted swiftly, calling an ambulance and rushing me to the nearby hospital, where a series of medical tests began. Everything felt like a blur as my health took a sudden turn for the worse. I tried reaching out to Bruce, but he didn't respond. Then came the heavy diagnosis: cancer. Thankfully, it was caught early, and the doctors assured me that with the right treatment, I would recover. However, I was well aware of the grueling nature of cancer treatments and braced myself for a challenging journey ahead. I informed Bruce about my diagnosis and subsequent hospitalization, but his reaction was dishearteningly indifferent. His silence during this critical time made me feel incredibly isolated. Nonetheless, I resolved to focus on my treatment, believing that pushing forward was my only viable option. The treatment was even tougher than I had anticipated. My health rapidly declined, confining me to my hospital bed most of the time. Amidst this struggle, Bruce finally appeared in my hospital room one day. "How are you feeling?" he asked nonchalantly. "It's pretty rough," I replied, trying to inject some lightheartedness into the conversation. "It might have been a bit easier if you were by my side." Honestly, I was frustrated by his lack of presence. Why hadn't he come sooner? His support could have made a significant difference during these trying times. Instead of feeling relieved at our reunion, I felt even more isolated. Reflecting on our past only increased my irritation. Then, Bruce dropped a bombshell that left me genuinely stunned. "I filed for divorce. I'll take the house and the car. I know it's tough, but hang in there. I don't know how much time you have left, but I hope you keep fighting." "Wait, are you serious?" I exclaimed, unable to hide my shock. "Divorce?" A storm of questions raged within me. Didn't we promise to always stay together? I had always believed that true couples would face challenges together. Bruce's words confused me and left me feeling completely detached. At that moment, a quiet resolve formed within me. "I don't need him anymore," I whispered to myself. "I'll move forward on my own. I'll just forget about him." I decided there and then that he would one day regret underestimating my strength and resilience, but first I needed to end our relationship properly. "I get it. I'm sorry for everything. Keep the house, keep the car," I said, relinquishing all ties with a sense of finality, ready to face the next chapter of my life on my terms. "Whatever you want, if you need compensation money, I'll pay," I said with resignation. Bruce initially looked surprised, but quickly his expression turned into a smug smile. "I didn't expect you to accept it so easily. I thought you'd throw a tantrum. Anyway, take care of yourself and don't bother inviting me to your funeral," he remarked coldly as he left the room. As he walked away, a smile spread across my face. He didn't realize that he had just fallen into my carefully laid trap. It was going to be interesting to see how his life would unfold from here. I reached out to a colleague from a company I knew well. "Hello, long time no talk. I have a favor to ask. Can you help?" Initially surprised, my colleague hesitated, but after I explained the situation, he agreed. "All right, let's give it a try." Everything was set. I imagined Bruce's shocked and anxious face, and this vision brought a smirk to my face. This newfound sense of excitement even boosted my motivation to continue my medical treatments with renewed vigor. A few days passed, and one afternoon, after my treatment session, I noticed that my cell phone had received 102 missed calls from Bruce. The thrill of waiting for his call was oddly satisfying. Once I calmed down, I called him back, and his shaky voice greeted me. "Natalie, help me." "I never expected this," he pleaded. Hearing his distressed tone made me chuckle internally. This was exactly what I had planned. Trying to sound concerned, I asked, "Bruce, tell me what happened." He took a deep breath before replying, "My name's on the company's layoff list." I can't believe this is happening. As I listened to his panicked voice, I smirked, knowing that everything was unfolding just as I had orchestrated. The person I contacted was the head of sales at our company. I had asked him to reconsider the business dealings with Bruce's company. Initially puzzled, he reviewed their transaction history and decided it was best to switch to a different partner. That's why Bruce's company started calling me. Deciding to twist the knife a bit, I revealed something I had kept to myself. "You know, there are rumors in your company about you and the new girl. Everyone likes her," I said, dropping the hint with feigned nonchalance. This added layer was sure to unsettle him even more as my plan continued to unravel perfectly. "Because she's always so cheerful, there are whispers about an affair. Is that true?" I could hear disbelief in Bruce's voice. "Are you serious? You can't be serious. This has to be a joke." His surprise was understandable. After all, who would think an ordinary employee could wield such influence? "Well, actually," I continued, letting a pause hang to gauge his reaction, "I'm the CEO of this company." Silence fell on the other end of the line as Bruce tried to process the revelation. "It's no lie," I assured him. This was the reason we had been living so comfortably. "My annual income is around $5 million. Your regular salary wouldn't have been enough to support your lavish shopping habits." The truth was, Bruce's spending was exorbitant. The $2,500 monthly allowance he received from me functioned like a second salary, yet it was never enough for him. He'd often rush to me with a pleading tone, asking, "Can I have a little more?" At this rate, the money he received from me might end up surpassing his actual salary. While most people would scale back to a more sustainable lifestyle, since I earned $5 million a year, giving Bruce a $2,500 allowance each month wasn't a big deal to me. However, I always wondered what he spent that money on. "Bruce, yesterday was payday, wasn't it?" I asked him, reminding him of our routine. "I've always given you extra money on payday, but that might be difficult from now on. We're not a couple anymore, and it's only natural that you can't expect that monthly allowance." I then cautioned him about the mortgage on the house. "Oh, and be careful with the mortgage. It's $3,800 a month. I know it'll be tough, but you'll need to manage it well. If you're late with the payment, you might have to leave the house." While a $3,800 loan wasn't a burden for me, it was a significant amount for Bruce. From his reaction, it was clear he was both confused and in disbelief, repeatedly muttering, "Really? Can this be happening?" His sense of security was visibly shaken, reflecting his newfound vulnerability. "And that's crazy. What I said was the truth. This is the result of my efforts to maintain our relationship," I expressed, reflecting on how Bruce took advantage of my presence, pursuing only his desires. Perhaps it was time for him to face the consequences of his actions. Why did it come to this? I've been laid off and now have to figure out how to get by. How am I going to pay the rent this month? The despair in his voice was palpable. He sounded lost and uncertain about his future. In his position, imagining a brighter future seemed daunting. I understood that Bruce's situation was overwhelming and confusing, a direct result of his past actions and disrespectful behavior towards me and my family. If he had shown genuine care and respect, things might not have deteriorated to this point. This was the consequence of his choices. Bruce remained silent, perhaps at a loss for words. I felt a mix of pity and amusement at his predicament. Was this the end of our conversation? Could I hang up now? But just then, he spoke again, his voice tinged with panic. Wait, can we reconsider our relationship one more time? I know it sounds selfish, but I realize now how important you were to me. The idea of starting over with him made my heart race, not out of excitement, but due to the daunting prospect of revisiting all the pain he had caused. He continued, I know I've been reckless lately, and I'm sorry I couldn't visit you in the hospital more often, but once you're better, let's go somewhere peaceful and have a relaxing time together. I want to see your smile again. His words were nostalgic, reminiscent of the promises he made when he proposed, a life filled with laughter and happiness. Back then, I was so swept up by his charm that I jumped into the relationship without fully considering the consequences. Now, reflecting on married life and all that had transpired, the thought of returning to how things were seemed overwhelmingly complex and fraught with potential pain. It proved challenging to navigate our relationship, especially with Bruce's reckless spending habits. Maybe if I had understood him better, things might have turned out differently. His voice grew weaker as he pleaded, Natalie, I can't live without you. I want to be by your side and face life's challenges together. Can we start fresh, just one more time? His words were saturated with sadness and a hint of desperation. Despite the emotion, trusting him again was difficult after everything that had happened. Stop it already, we're done. I've chosen a new path and I can't go back, I responded firmly. There was a trace of sorrow in his voice, and I could sense he genuinely wanted to reconcile. Please, let me say one last thing. I truly loved you, Natalie. If you ever change your mind, I'll be here. His words might have swayed me once, but I had already made a firm decision about my future and our relationship. I would no longer be influenced by his sweet talk. Enough. Words like that won't change my mind. Think about it. Don't you have another girlfriend? Shouldn't you focus on her? I was aware of Bruce's new relationship through information provided by his boss. His declarations of love now seemed hollow, mere conveniences to sway me back to his side. It was frustrating to realize that he only reached out when he needed something and turned away when times were tough. We can't be together anymore. Spend quality time with her and forget about me. I will not be reaching out, but if you need to contact me, speak to my lawyer. Take care of yourself, Bruce. His pleas seemed sincere, but letting him go was necessary. It would likely make his life more difficult, but that was a consequence of his choices. I had my own life to move forward with, and I wanted him to stand on his own 3 feet. After our conversation, I hung up and adjusted my settings to block any further contact from him. According to my lawyer, Bruce repeatedly tried to reach out, but I remained firm in my decision to move on independently. My decision was resolute, and my lawyer respected it, keeping details about me confidential. Surprisingly, my lawyer then suggested pursuing damages, a possibility I hadn't initially considered, but now seemed like a viable way to seek compensation. I knew Bruce and his new partner were not financially well off. Rumors of his serious debts had circulated for a while. Upon further investigation into his affair partner, I discovered she had fled due to her financial predicaments. When I reached out to her family, they were furious and disclosed that she was now back home, working hard to make ends meet. It was clear that actions always have consequences, and they were now experiencing their own. Meanwhile, I had managed to overcome cancer and make a full recovery, a development that even surprised my doctors. On returning to the office, I found a letter on my desk from the supportive sales manager. His heartwarming words deeply touched me. As word got out that I was single again, some colleagues kindly offered to set me up. However, after everything that had happened in my past marriage, I decided to cherish my time and focus on myself for now. This period of reflection and self-care seemed essential after the tumultuous events I had endured.